your ideal clients or customers. And this is really key to a very successful business. And really it's all about not leaving money on the table. So if you understand your customers, that helps you to create a really good communication strategy, to market to people effectively. So it's really about letting people know about your product or service in a way that resonates with them and that will encourage them to buy. Not in an icky way, but literally that they know what your product or service does or can do for them. What's the benefit to having your product or service? And if you understand your customers, you will know how to connect with them. The other thing, just the quote here, is that people are not rational at all, and that's been proven time and time again, in terms of business and in terms of buying. Just a bit about my background again. You guys know me. I have a degree in business, marketing in German, and a master's in marketing, consumption and society. And just the consumption and society, really, a lot of people ask me. It's basically all about consuming. Why do people consume? All about society. What drives us to buy things? What does marketing mean? All that sort of thing. So I have a huge interest in this area. Hence, I'm launching a course on this, and hence I do quite a lot of teaching of this through my one-to-ones with people and working with people. So I've worked in lots of industries. I've over 20 years business experience in a variety of sectors. Agriculture, bloodstock. I've significant retail industry experience, obviously marketing, sales manager, market research. I've done some lecturing. I've worked significantly in the education sector for universities, and schools, warehousing, logistics. So kind of been there, done that. And I work a lot more recently, as in the last couple of years, with small to medium businesses in a consultancy level. So going in and just helping people to work out strategies and to work on their social media. So that's just to prove, yes, I do have a degree and a master's. So that's the graduation days, and I'm a mompreneur, so just my most important role. And I know you're all moms, or a lot of your moms on the call just now, so your children are very important, and the reason you're doing things is to help people, but equally, obviously we're all in business to make a better life for ourselves as well. Okay, just a bit about me again. I'm very passionate about helping people to understand their customers, and I love teaching business people how marketing really works and how to do it for yourselves. So really for me, it's all about teaching people how to do it for yourselves. Most people don't have marketing departments, so how do you do it for yourselves? If you don't want to do certain things, can you contract it out? But what can you do and do very effectively? I'm a very big fan of freebies, if you can at all. If there's free software out there, working around, kind of anything that you have that can help your business as it stands. So really, I help people make money in the smartest way possible, and that's all about, looking at your resources, looking at what you bring to the table, and looking at your business and making money the smartest way possible, combining all those elements. So today's webinar then is really all about your consumer. Who are they? What are they? What drives them to buy? The one big action big brands do when outlining their customer profiles, and understanding why having only one customer avatar. Now, some people might have heard of that phrase, but really it's about, there's a big thing online at the moment that you've got one ideal customer, and the idea of our target market, there's different phrases for it, but essentially what people believe is that you only have one customer. So the idea is that you visualize that one customer, that you know what they eat, what they drink, where they live, and that you market to that one customer. What I'm saying to you is, no matter what business you have, is all people are different. You will have different types of customers. You can narrow them down, you can categorize them, but you definitely have more than one customer, one type of customer, and to kind of get around that idea that you have more than one customer. In particular, if you've more than one product, if you've more than one service, you most definitely have customers for particular products and for particular services. The other thing to look at as well today that we're going to look at is learning how to understand your customer's image of themselves. And you can see why that's going to be important, so you can successfully market them. This is all going back to conspicuous consumption, and conspicuous consumption is really all about, when somebody wears a Dolce & Gabbana glasses, so it's very obvious the brand that they're wearing. If you're driving a BMW car, that's conspicuous consumption, so people can see it. It's very visual, so in today's society, people typically want others to know what brands that they wear and what they use, and it signifies who they are typically. So we're just going to talk about that. So again, the quote I had earlier, the idea that people are rational is rival, and yes, indeed, people are predictably irrational, and that's been shown time and time again. So kicking right into it, Right. I can send this to you guys, but essentially this is what you can do. It's what big brands do. I'll just go through it with you here. I hope you can see it properly, but I can send the Excel sheet to you if you can let me know in the chat whether you'd like to receive it or not. But basically, if you look at no matter what business you're in, no matter what, if it's coffee, if it's, if you're in coaching business, if it's jewelry or whatever it is that your business is, you have to look at, your business from your customer's point of view. I suppose there's two elements, the customer's point of view, but equally, what's your value proposition? And that's a very important term to understand. Your value proposition is what your business provides. What's the benefit to going to your business? What's important about your business, and how will that benefit your customer? So you need to understand your value proposition. It's a very important term to understand, hugely overlooked in today's marketing strategy. So your value proposition. So what do you propose to your customer? What can you give them? It's kind of nearly going back to that relationship, getting married. What do you bring to the table, from your customer's point of view? So if you look up here, then you've got your customer and what's their problem. So what are you solving for them? If they're thirsty, is it a cup of coffee? Is it, because I know Martina, she's on the call, and she sells coffee and goes around to different events, different types of coffee. So, what problems do people have? So people are at events and they mightn't have food or drink with them. So their problem is that they need to get some coffee. They need to get a drink of water, other products that she has. If you're in the coaching business, what problem does your customers have? So if you just go through all these questions, the thing is, does the problem, or does it exist already? Do they know that it exists? Are they aware of the problem? Sometimes people aren't. For example, even me teaching this particular topic, most business owners aren't even aware that they don't know this. So if you've never learned it, you can't know it. So you don't know that you're kind of missing this as a missing piece in your whole business and marketing strategy. So for me, it's to make people aware that they need to know this. So this is often the case for business owners is, what is the problem? So if you go to the statement, your customers have whatever problem it is. The customer is aware of the problem. So you can state that customers know that they have a problem or they don't know. So how do you get around that if they don't know? Who are your customers? So these are all the questions that you need to ask yourself as a business owner in terms of understanding life, your customer's life. So from their perspective, what do they need? Is it an urgent problem for your customer? So, do they need it now? Do they need it next week? Or kind of, can they leave it on the long finger? So you need to understand that in terms of your marketing strategy. Most people, if they think they can leave things on the long finger, yes, they will. So you have to understand that. And sometimes in terms of making sales, you need to create a little bit of urgency, or, around selling it in terms of, I suppose, encouraging people to buy, and that they're not leaving it on the long finger. I worked in sales for many, many years, and I worked in direct sales. One of the companies I worked for were hugely into making the person buy on the day. And if they didn't, that the price would increase significantly. It's a hard sell, but I have to say that while I didn't like doing it, particularly at the same time, you close the deal. People bought. It was a very good product. You could stand over it. But people, they either bought or they didn't buy. If they didn't buy, they just didn't buy and you walked away. But you knew on that day that they'd bought or not. So it's one particular model of marketing. I'm not particularly fond of it in general, but the thing is, it's to encourage people to buy. So create scarcity and create, kind of a timeline where they should buy. So again, is it an urgent problem for customers? Understand if it is or it isn't. Okay, willing. Is the customer ready to act to solve the problem? This is obviously a big one. Do people, do they need to do something with their hair, for example? If you're a hairdresser, do they need to get a color? So are they ready to solve the problem? So again, you go back to the statement, customer, who is your customer? Begin exploring solutions. So they're looking at hair color, they're looking at coaching, they're looking at going to get coffee, they're looking at buying jewelry, they're going to a particular event. So what is the event? What are the circumstances? Why do they need your product or service? Other questions to ask are, where does the customer explore options to solve the problem? So that's where you look at your competitors. Who are your competitors and where can they find information on you? So are you on social media? Do you have a website? Do you have ads in the paper? Do you go on the radio? Do you have ads in the radio? Where can people find out about you? So if they have this problem, And this is often an issue for small to medium business owners, is they have a very good product or service and yet nobody is finding them because they're not marketing in the correct places. They're not understanding who their customer is. So for example, LinkedIn is a terrific source for B2B, but equally sometimes B2C. So in other words, it's not as busy a place as Facebook, and often it can be very good to go into LinkedIn and to market within LinkedIn, because the average salary of somebody in LinkedIn is $84,000, which is roughly about 78,000 euros per year, and they've higher disposable income. As I said, it's not a saturated market in terms of selling, so often it can be interesting to market to people in LinkedIn or different areas where you mightn't have thought of before. So then looking at what's the strongest catalyst for action. So the strongest catalyst for action, what's going to make them act, what's going to solve their problem, what's their pain point. Okay, are they able to, have they the means to solve the problem? Oops, sorry. Bear with me. I don't know what I've done there. So do people have the means to solve the problem? So what is it? Do they have the means? Do they have the authority to solve the problem, to become a paying customer? Do they need permission? What's the success potential? Will our product solve their problem? So, will your product, will your service solve the problem? So again, if it's jewelry, do you have lovely pieces that will go well with a gown? What is it that you have that will help people? So will your product replace the need for an inferior solution? So this is really about looking at what other solutions are available in the marketplace at the moment. What's available to people out there? What can they do? Where do they go? So if they don't, so for example, if you have a high-end product or even middle of the road product, will people go for a cheaper product? Will they go for something that's more expensive? And if they do, what's driving them to either or? So just about, again, understanding the success potential for your product or service. Will our product integrate with existing solutions? So can you make it work with existing solutions? So again, with the jewelry, are they just buying a necklace? They already have some other items. So can they integrate it into the solutions they have already? If you're in coaching, perhaps somebody already has a coach, and then they need to get a coach perhaps that can help them with a more specific area. So they might have an overall coach, but they want somebody specifically to be a business coach, for example. Then you're looking at the cost efficiency of the product. Can you convert people, like customers, cost effectively? And this is sometimes more questions for bigger companies, in terms of the customers. Is it cost effective to market to people in a certain area? So for example, if you were to pay a salesperson, that can be very expensive. So is it cost effective to do that? And usually it isn't for small to medium business owners. So what can you do instead? Can you be on social media? How do you get around this? So how does the customer drive products? So how can you, so these are all questions that you need to ask. You need to go through the questions and then go through the statements in terms of customers find our solutions through. So what marketing channel will they find you? Customers become paying customers because, what's the catalyst? Customers have success with our product, and what's the action that they take? So this is all very important. I would focus on these elements down to here. Customers have success with their product and take an action. And I can send this to everybody and let them know. I can send this to everybody if you can just let me know if you would like to receive it. Okay, so just following on, I know that's kind of very in-depth and can be quite heavy, but if you can go through all these questions, these are really super important questions to go through very, very slowly in terms of understanding who your customer is, and these are really viable questions to ask within any business context. Okay, the backbone of businesses worldwide are well-informed entrepreneurs willing to learn new skills that will help transform their business. And this is super important. And this is why you guys are on the call tonight, is because you want to learn, you want to be informed, you want to have new skills that will help you to transform your business. And this is really important, that you are doing this and that you're learning, and this will help to drive your business forward. As an entrepreneur, it is imperative that you learn to understand your customers so that you can improve your marketing communications and connect with your customers. So again, being an entrepreneur, you need to understand your customers, who they are, where are they, how can you find them, what's the benefit of your product or service, what do they need, how can you improve your marketing channels, in other words, where you're actually marketing. So if you go back to the questions on the Excel sheet, those are really super important questions that can help you to decipher what your product is, what's the benefit, what's the value proposition, how is it benefiting your customer, and communicate that. When you understand everything from your customer point of view, you then will be able to communicate to those customers. Right. So just going on then, learn your customer types. So all business owners have different types of customers. And as I said to you earlier, within a product, within a service, if you've got different products, different services, you've different types of customers. The trick is to understand what type of customers you do have. And this training will help you to identify your own customer profiles, hopefully. It's a lot of work involved in this. And that's one thing I'd like to reiterate, that there's a huge amount of work in this, but it's well worth it. I don't want to put people off, but it's not a quick fix. You need to understand how to do this. You need to understand what frameworks to use and what questions to ask. And when you do, then it becomes easier and easier each time you become to understand your customers each time a lot better. So consumer branding framework is, once you understand your customers, you will then be able to make excellent marketing and branding decisions. You can learn this through case studies, which I'll go through with you now in a second. So in other words, when you understand your customers, you will then be able to get across to them very effectively in your marketing and branding decisions. So where that comes from is that branding helps people to understand what your business is and what it stands for. And when you do that, then that can be very effective in getting across to your target market who you are and what your business stands for. That is, what your business is and what it stands for. Sorry, I deal with a lot of solo entrepreneurs, so I have to think it's, sometimes it's not just solo entrepreneurs, it's small to medium business owners, and it's the business, not just necessarily a person representing the business. Okay, so learn what influences a customer's buying decisions. So what influences them? Is it themselves? Is it the people around them? What influences people's buying decisions? And it's critical that you understand this for your marketing strategy. And just that once you understand your customer, it makes it much easier when putting together a content marketing strategy. I covered this in a previous webinar about content marketing, and really what that is about is, what's your strategy? What's your strategy for creating content, to communicate effectively with your customer? So in other words, if you're on Instagram, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, if you have email marketing, all the different elements of marketing, what way or what messages are you going to put across to these people? What's going to do that for you? So and what will engage and delight them? So not just boring stuff, but what will delight them? What will help them? What's valuable to them? Can you remind them? Can you encourage them? Can you create referrals? Can you create opportunities for upselling? So a content marketing strategy is really about just sitting back each month usually and deciding each week what themes you're across all your different social media. If you're doing a blog, if you're doing video, if you're doing podcasting, whatever it is that you're doing, that you know what you're doing in advance, and you know your themes, and you know that this will resonate with your customers. Okay, just the business world is changing on a daily basis, in particularly online. But the fundamentals are the same. So attracting and retaining customers is the same no matter what. And really you need to understand, how your customers think and feel. So how do they feel when they buy your product or service? Do they feel happy? Do they feel like they've gained something? What's the benefit of buying your product or service? It's all about selling what your customers need in a way that resonates with them on a personal level. So if you resonate with them on a personal level, they'll be delighted that they bought your product or service. And one point I'd like to make is that when people buy, you've got to be able to, you've got to be able to reiterate that the reason they bought is really valid. So, for example, if somebody buys a car, it's very important that the salesperson keeps reiterating as the person is signing the forms that, this is a really good car, it's a really good quality, it's excellent, in terms of safety. So you're reiterating the good reasons why that person bought. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance, which is basically buyer's remorse. So if you don't do this, what often happens is, in the case of the car, somebody buys a car, for example, a Volkswagen, a BMW, whatever it is, they are delighted. They go home, and then their father, their mother, their brother, their sister says to them, why did you buy that car? You should have bought another brand, because that's the brand that they like. So if the person that has just bought this new car is not sure of the brand qualities, if they're a little bit shaken if somebody questions them on their purchase, then they will start to wonder, should they have bought the car? Should they have bought a different car? So it creates that buyer's remorse. We've all done it with clothes, where you buy this dress you think is fabulous and it might not be that fabulous, when you go home. So you're sorry that you bought it. So it's buyer's remorse. So make sure that your customers don't experience buyer's remorse. How do you do that? By reminding them via email, or if you deal with them on a personal level, that I'm so delighted that you bought this product, as in, if it's jewelry, if it's coaching, I'm so delighted. And you will receive, name the benefits, at least 3 of them, as to why it was a good reason to buy your product or service. Okay, so how consumers brands satisfy social and psychological needs. So really what this is about is, earlier I was mentioning about customers' image of themselves. So when somebody wears Dolce & Gabbana, when somebody buys a BMW car, those purchases are symbolic of who they believe they are. So people are trying to portray a certain persona when they buy certain brands or certain items. So what I'm trying to get across to you as a business owner is, what does your product or service convey to the general public? So if I buy your product or service today, will people know? So will my neighbor know? In the case of the car, of course, they will know. But is it another type of product or purchase that they may not know about? Or, so understand, is it conspicuous consumption? Can people see it as a brand, or is it more personal? And therefore, maybe there's less involved in terms of self-image. So just to keep these questions in mind. So just to reiterate then about images around your brand, brands are hugely symbolic. And brands really are about, what's your business stand for? What's the customer service like? Do they get good value for money? There's all these different elements. It's not just about the big brands like Coca-Cola or Guinness or whatever the case is. It's about your business. What's symbolic about your business? What comes across to people? Are they glad that they've bought your product? Are they glad they've bought your service? So does it resonate with their self-image? So for example, if they buy a bespoke piece of jewelry, does that resonate with the customer's self-image? Are they delighted? Can they tell everybody that this is a bespoke piece of jewelry that says something about them? Okay, why is branding important? We'll look at this case study. I sent this out in an email, so you may have seen it already. But basically, a study was done about tablets or analgesics where people had headaches. And when a person has a headache, they go and buy, obviously a tablet. They want a quick fix. They want their headache gone. And, why do they pick one brand over another? Is one tablet better over another? So what the researchers did was they got the very same product, the very same analgesic, and they put one is branded and one is unbranded. And what they were able to see was that 25% of pain relief was attributable to branding. So in other words, when somebody took the unbranded analgesic, they assumed it wasn't as good as the branded analgesic. So in other words, the unbranded tablet was not, they didn't think it was as good as the branded one, even though the product was exactly the same. So this is why it's very important that your customers understand what your business or product, your business, be it a product or service, stands for. What does it stand for? Because everything in branded, product and service is all about perception. Okay, so think about the pain relief, the analgesic. 25% of pain relief was attributable to branding. I mean, that's astounding. And it just goes to show how people think. So the images, if you're putting out images, it's very important. If you're putting out leaflets, if you've got a website, what does that stand for? What's the vision for the brand? And does it match the needs, values, and lifestyle of your customers? So these are just considerations. There's a lot to take in all of this. I'm actually doing a beta course starting next week. If you'd like to be involved, you see the details in the question and answers there if you'd like to have a look. This is another case study just in terms of Guinness. Some of the people on the call are from Ireland, or I'm sure most people are aware of Guinness as a brand. Guinness basically is, it's a bitter, it's a beer. So, but it's very well marketed and has, won loads of competitions for its marketing. And basically what they've done is they've given what's basically is a bitter stout. It's awful. I don't like it myself. But basically what they're saying is it has a personality that's all about values and myths of power and energy. And the brand represents manliness, mature experience and wit. So really it's just a drink. It's a dark bitter. And what the branding does, what the marketing does, it represents manliness, mature experience, and wit. So really what that means is when somebody is buying or drinking a glass of Guinness, they think that makes them witty, they think it makes them mature, and they think it makes them manly. Why? Because of marketing, what they've seen on TV. Now, your marketing doesn't have to be on TV, but what does your marketing say about your product or service? Does it mean your customer is going to be witty? Does it imply that they're going to be mature? Does it imply they're going to be manly or feminine? So think about what your marketing communication subconsciously gets across to people. So this is all very, very subconscious, and it gives a personality to the brands. Okay, these are things to think of in terms of, what do people think when they're looking at a brand? So if you look at Mercedes, Rolex, Hermes, high-end brands, when people buy these types of brands, what they think is, I'm a high achiever. This is through research. So if they have a Mercedes, what they're trying to say is, I'm a high achiever. If they have a Hermes scarf, they're trying to say, I am a high achiever. If they have a BMW or Tag Heuer or Armani, they're saying, I'm on my way to the top. So you can see like this is a top-down thing here. If you have an Apple computer, if you wear a Swatch watch, you're saying, I'm an individual, because that's what the marketing says about these products or services. Now, when you think about it in reality, an Apple computer is just a computer. A car is just a car. So the marketing is telling people how to think about the product or service. I am a world citizen. And that means, if you use British Airways or Benetton, which is a fashion label based in Italy, so it's all about being a world citizen. So what does your purchases, so think about yourself as a consumer as well, what do your purchases say about you? Do you drive a Mercedes? Does that mean you believe you're a high achiever? Do you drive a BMW? Do you think you're on your way to the top? Do you have an Apple computer or a Swatch watch, and that makes you more of an individual? You want to stand out from the crowd. Do you fly with British Airways or you wear Benetton? Does that suggest that you're a world citizen? This is where if you use a particular bank called the Cooperative Bank, who are very big into the environment, or Body Shop or Innocent, or there's different brands who say that I care about the environment. So what does your business say? When your customers buy from you, what does it say about the customer when they use your business? Just have a think about that. So really, your business represents particular values. Some of them can be honest or dependable. Some are that they're lasting, they're meaningful. So what does it say? So if you've got lasting, meaningful, values, it means that it ensures the longevity of the brand. In other words, it ensures that your business will go forward into the future. So I know this is all very in depth, so if you can bear with me, I'll have a look at the chat now in a second. So just to think again, I just said this to you earlier, how will your customer feel using your product or service? How do they feel about it? And if you don't know, ask them. Write a little quiz or just ask people. You'll get very good feedback. Another thing to do is get somebody else to ask them, or if you've got a shop, do a mystery shopper and see how do people actually feel about your product or service. A good example of this whole branding idea is the blind taste test for Pepsi and Coke. Before the blind taste test, 23% of people said they preferred Pepsi, and 65% said they preferred Coke, and 5% said they couldn't tell either way. So this is where they did two tests. One where they were the people taking part were allowed to see what brands they were drinking, and the second one test they did where they just drank them out of a cup which they didn't know what the brand is. So 51% of people during the blind taste test preferred Pepsi. So look at that. When people see the brand, 23% of people preferred Pepsi, and when they didn't see it, 51%. And if you think of Coke and Pepsi, these are brands where people have the invested idea that they really know their Coke, that they're Coke drinkers. So 65% of people prefer Coke, but really do they? So when it's a blind taste test, 44% prefer. So it's actually less. So when it's blind taste test, so this just goes to show how important your branding, the messages that you get across to your customers are really important. So 12% couldn't say either way. So that's kind of an increase there. But you can see what I'm trying to say. So before the blind taste test, 23% preferred Pepsi. When they drank it, actually 51% preferred it. So that's quite significant in terms of what your marketing does for you. Excuse me. So when you have high price purchases, again, like Mercedes, what what they often do is they coordinate their marketing in such a way that they create metaphors around the analogies of great writers, sports personalities, and historical events. So they align their product with great personalities, with historical events, such as Hemingway, for example, is well-known writer. So they put Hemingway with the brand of a particular car. And the idea of it is that people inherently think that that brand is much better because it's associated with Hemingway. So just trying to have a think of that. We can have if you ask me questions on that, it's a hard one to get your head around. Okay, I'm just going to quickly look at the questions and see is anybody asking any questions. If you're kind of keeping up with me, I'm possibly speaking to, oh, please send Excel sheet. Great, perfect. You can hear me okay. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. I am terrible for doing that. Present to everybody. So I'll just go back into the presentation and I will continue. So I hope you're keeping up all right and that everybody's okay there. So basically I'm going through the whole idea of, what's your customer? Who are they? What do they feel when they buy your product or service? So one good example is Harley Davidson. The Harley Davidson brand, it's a well-known international brand for motorbikes. It's around since the early 1900s. And basically HOGS, as it's called, capture 23% of all US bike sales and 50% of the heavyweight motorcycle segment. So it's huge in terms of customers. So basically, if you look at Harley Davidson, how are they achieving this? And really what they've done is, during the early 80s, actually, they were doing really, really badly. So what they did was they went back and they looked at their customers and they looked at their buying behavior. And this is absolutely huge. What's the buying behavior of your customer? What drives them to buy? What influences to buy? What influences them to come back to buy? So they want to know who their customers are, what they think, and how they feel. They also want to know what makes Harley buyers so loyal. And this is top management, and this is critical to understand. A huge company where the top management are putting priority on understanding the customers and what makes them tick. So do you do this in your business? And often what happens in a business is people get stuck in the operational aspects of the business and they forget to look at what drives customers to buy their product or service. They get bogged down in how to make the bike, how to get logistically from one place to the other, who's managing, who's not, all the kind of politics and stuff, and they forget to look at the customer and what they want. So Harley Davidson, very, very successful company, and they've gone back. So who is their customer? The average Harley customer is a 46-year-old husband with a median, so an average household income of $78,000, and more than 10% of Harley purchases are made by women. So this is a significant change in the last, say, 10 to 15 years, is that women are starting to buy Harley Davidson products, and this wouldn't originally been the case. So how do Harley Davidson know that? Is because they go back and they check and they ask their customers and they do their research. So what they did was they conducted focus groups, and focus groups are a fantastic way of getting really good insights into your customers. And a focus group is where you ask some of your customers to be interviewed by one other person. So for example, I have done them before, and I might have 10 people. I do it for other people. I don't do it for myself. The whole point is you get somebody that's independent to do a focus group or conduct a focus group. And essentially you set up questions that you want answered from your customers. So why do they buy from you? What drives them to buy? Why do they go to competitors? What do they think about your brand? What do they think about the customer service? All these related questions that you want to know, and you go to a focus group, you get somebody independent to run it, and basically you get maybe, 5 to 10 people, probably 8 to 10 is a good number, and you ask them all these questions for about an hour, and you get good insights into who these customers are. So in the case of Harley Davidson, they mailed out 160,000 surveys. This is another way of doing it as well. You may not have 160,000 people to email, but you will have an email list. So please email your customers and ask them. Now, it's always hard to get people to actually fill them out, so you may have to give a prize or something like to get them to do that. There's some Harley Davidson people, the hard guys, as they're kind of known sometimes. So just going back to the 7, they actually found out from all this research that they had 7 different customer types. So this is where I was talking about earlier, that having one customer, or the idea that you only have one customer, is ludicrous in many ways, because you've totally different customers. People are all different. So if you look at the 7 core customers, and when they say core, there's loads of different customers, different types of people that buy from Harley Davidson. But what they've done is they've categorized all their characteristics, and they've worked out there's at least 7 that they can identify. So for marketing purposes, they've identified 7. So the first one is adventure-loving traditionalists. So these are the traditional bikers. They love adventure. Sensitive pragmatists, so pragmatic people that are quite sensitive, but equally are into biking, into the open air and everything. Stylish status seekers. So these are the names that they've given them, which are quite quirky. Laid-back campers, classy capitalists. So these are people, make good money, and at the weekends they want to head off for a weekend on the back of their bike. There's a lot of anonymity with that as well. So if somebody's a CEO of a company, they might actually want to be a classy capitalist, whereby they go biking at the weekend and go into some completely different lifestyle away from their one during the week. Cool-headed loners and cocky misfits. So they've broken them down and they've given them quirky names, but you can see why they've called them certain customer types. So, and one of the things that came back when they were looking at was that the Harley Davidson is more than a machine. So this is what the customers feel about it, is that Harley Davidson, the actual bike, is more than a machine. It's part of their self-expression and lifestyle. So it becomes part of their life. And that's really important to understand. If your product or service becomes part of a customer's life, they will have no problem referring your business. They will have no problem speaking very positively about your business. And that's very important. So if you can integrate your product or service into their self-expression and their lifestyle, that is huge, and that will help you to sell a lot more product or service. There's strong emotions and motivations. So there's different emotions around and motivations around buying a Harley Davidson. And, and so it's go back to the customer types and how can you market to those seven different customer types. So if you look at Harley Davidson, then it looks like it reflects the call for freedom and comradeship. So they look for freedom and friendship. So if you look at that, it's all about the tribe. It's all about, your customers all wanting to get together with like-minded people. And that's what Harley Davidson has done a very good job of, is reaching out to like-minded people that love their Harleys. Okay, so what you've got to understand is the symbolism of your business. So what does your symbol, what does your brand represent? And I'm talking about brands, but what I mean by brands is your business. What does your business represent? What does the design say about you? If you don't have that much design, what's the visual representations? Some people don't have fantastic branding, as in the color schemes and all the rest of it, but they are the brand. So they represent the brand. So what do you mean to people? Why do people connect to you? Why do they buy from you? What's the meaning of them coming to you? Visual representations can be important. So even, like I said, if you don't have fantastic branding necessarily, you can become the brand. So what's your visual representation? Think about that. What do you convey to people? And this is where you're talking about the image is really important. So for example, Green Giant Vegetables, if you've ever heard of them, let's go on to the next page. Green Giant, picked at the peak of perfection, So if that was just words, not an image, it would be very hard to get that across if it was just words. So, think of that. Look at the image. If it was just words, it would be very hard to get that across. So images are very, very powerful. So think about that when you're doing your marketing. Images can be powerful. It's worth maybe getting a graphic designer and going on Fiverr perhaps and getting somebody to do a graphic for you that conveys a certain message that transcends any words that you would say. The actual visual says it for you. Just to take into consideration as well that we play a number of social roles within our life, and that brands can help us to play those roles. Okay, and I'll just talk to you about that. So if you look at a golfer, that particular brand, Dunlop, it's the brighter the better. They're kind of saying, really, if you buy from us, you're going to be a great golfer. Now, of course, what you wear is not going to make you a better golfer, but it implies that, and that's what people buy into. So to become accepted even within golfing society, people would go out and buy that type of paraphernalia just to become accepted in that society. And they may never be a good golfer, but they will buy the golfing paraphernalia. And the same with any, if people are into skydiving or they're, whatever, sport, football, cricket, baseball, whatever they're into, people will go out and buy those brands because they buy into the ideal, they buy into the message that they can be better. So either going out every weekend playing golf, maybe they're useless, but they have the good gear. Very important to get that across. If nothing else, that's what you have. So what does it say to people? It's all a perception. So consider as well that consumer purchases are strongly influenced by cultural, social. So social being, if you look at the golf, personal and psychological characteristics. So these are all the influences that people have. So if you look at Moët Chandon, it's a type of champagne. Now, of course, you could go and buy Prosecco. You could buy, if you're having a celebration, you could buy cheaper types of champagne. But why buy Moët Chandon? It says you've certain class. It says, perhaps it's a particularly salubrious occasion. It's a wedding, so you buy Moët Chandon. It's signifying that it's a particularly significant celebration, and that's why you would buy, a brand like that. So just understand the rituals people have as well in celebrating a particular, celebration, and that's why they would use that. This is an interesting case study as well, is that back in, I think it was the 40s or 50s, they did Nescafe tried to break into the coffee market in the USA, and they found that people, American housewives weren't buying the brand, and they couldn't figure out why. It was, at the time, ground coffee was really, really popular. So this was like instant coffee, and why wouldn't you buy it? It was quicker, still tasted good, all the rest of it. So they did blind product testing, and they found there was no problems. But yet when people were going in shopping, they weren't actually buying the product. And what they figured out was that the impression housewives had at the time, and remember, these are the people buying the groceries, was that if you bought instant coffee, it meant you were lazy. So they figured that at the time, being a good housewife, being thrifty, being hardworking were important values at that time. And what housewives figured was that if you were the type of mother or the type of housewife that went out and got an instant coffee, it meant you didn't really care about your family, that you weren't willing to slave over ground coffee and grind it down for your family, that you were lazy. So when they figured this out, so when they did the taste test, the blind taste test, there was no problems. But when the customers saw the actual branding, they favored the ground coffee, because they felt that people were lazy that bought the instant coffee. So what Nescafe did was change their marketing, and they were quite smart about it. They implied that you had more time now for your family. Instead of just grinding coffee, you had more time for yourself. All these kind of values that were important at the time. So it's very important to understand your customers. So even sometimes when you have a good product or service, people won't buy because of these values that they have. So understand their values. Another good thing to look at as well is the culture. So if you look at the Red Cross is where ambulances and emergency agencies that would help in different areas. And basically, in the Middle East, for example, it's called the Red Crescent and not the Red Cross because of religious. So it's very important to understand those. If you're going into different countries, into different markets, what does it mean? So a brand is a way of communication. So your business communicates these marketing, and it's certain criteria. So, and it's distinguishable characteristics. So what stands out about your product or service? What stands out? What does it communicate to people? So what does your business, your product or service say about, what's the benefit for your customer? The thing to look at as well is, so everyone has an idea of who they are, and also like the actual self, but also the image you want to project to others. Okay, so just think about that. What's your actual self concept, and also what's the image you want to project to others? So what happens there is, if somebody wants to look glamorous, maybe they buy loads of really high-end brands because they want to get across the fact that they're glamorous. So they have a desired self-image. So where does your product or service fit into that? What's the desired self-image? So for example, also situations are very important to understand. So for example, the situation where there's a guy, say your husband, you're meeting up on Saturday night and you're meeting up with his colleagues and his boss is going to be there. So if you're, as a wife, going there, you're going to wear something maybe not so revealing perhaps, or so it's you dress yourself according to the situation. So again, go back to your product or service. what situations are people buying your product or service? So what drives them to buy it? Are there particular reasons why they wouldn't buy it? So look at the situations, look at the branding, the self-image. What does your brand or service say about people? So for example, if you look at a credit card, there's some really high-end credit cards, and the respected person. So if you look at kind of a gold or platinum, I can help you to be the classy person you really are, is what the brand is saying. My job is to help you get accepted, say, in society. I can open doors for you. So for example, in the situation where somebody is wants to be affluent, and they go in, they buy, say, dinner for everybody else, and they have a gold card or a platinum card, and that's demonstrating to everyone that they've made it. The other one is where a really high-end credit card, for example, platinum or different ones that you would know. So are you ready for me? Can you afford me? I'm so well known and established that I can do what I want. So basically, you mightn't get their credit card unless you have loads and loads and loads of money. So they're kind of making themselves unattainable. It's an aspirational brand. Okay, so this one, the top one, is more you can get it, you're classy. This one is kind of maybe billionaires, or I don't know, whatever the case is. Can you afford them? So they're making themselves so high end that their brand said, when you buy that brand or you're using that brand, it says something about you. So again, go back to your product or service. What does that say about their customer when they use your product or service? Now, I know this is all very heavy, and it's taken me a bit longer than I had expected to go through some of this. So let me go back to the questions and see, does anybody have questions for me? You're still here. You're doing awesome. Clever housewives not buying instant coffee. Thank you, Martina. I love that. Martina is selling coffee. So these are just to give you examples of case studies of where people have been smart and going back and figuring out, I know I have a good product or service in the case of the coffee, and how can I get around this? So they marketed it very effectively, where they said, they have extra time for their family if they had the instant coffee. Thank you, Jeannie. I'm doing awesome. Great. Okay, so I am still going through this, so I will keep going. And basically, I've sent this out, and you would have got some of this in an email as well, is that, okay, well, what types of, when you're looking at your customer, you've got to look at the relationships. Okay, so the relationships that your customers have with your business, and your business product or service. So for example, you might have compartmentalized friendship. So this is where you have a product or service where it's a specialized friendship independent on a particular situation. So this would be a man choosing his beer according to the group of people he's drinking with. So if you go back to the situation where, if you're working and you say you're out drinking with the CEO, you might have only one glass of wine, but you mightn't drink beer because you want to appear to be more classy. So this is a compartmentalized friendship. So you might only use a product or service at certain times. Okay, so again, maybe with the champagne idea, you only use a really high-end champagne at a particular time, a particular situation. A kinship then, so these are all the different types of relationships your product or service can have with their customers. So kinship is an involuntary union, such as when a cook feels obliged to use the same kind of flour that their mother used. So this is where, kind of going back to nostalgia and all the rest of it, it's involuntary. So you've always done it, for example, so you will do it again. A rebound relationship then is about you wish to replace a prior partner. For example, a woman switches air freshener to avoid association with an ex-husband, for example. So this is rebound. You can see the associations where in relationships that people have a relationship and they, with the product or with the service, and what does that mean about them? What does it mean about the reason that they bought it? So you can see in terms of the air freshener, somebody has an ex-husband or whatever the case is, they've now a bad association with that air freshener, and now they want to go with another one because of that. So just to understand, again, why your customers are buying certain products or service. A childhood friendship then is where your brand or your business evokes childhood memories, such as when a man chooses a brand of orange juice because he recalls drinking it in his childhood. So if you have particular orange juice you used to drink, or there's certain foods perhaps that you drank or ate, and drinks that you drank when you were a child, and they evoke memories and nice memories, and you'll go back and you'll use them and you've nice memory about it. A committed partnership then is a voluntary long-term relationship, such as when someone becomes an advocate for a brand. So for example, if you look at hiking boots, and after years of blister-free hiking, So if somebody's been hiking for years and they've had a great pair of boots, you know, they're in a committed partnership, they'll always buy those boots because for years and years they've used them and they've always been great. You know, they're great brand advocates to have. So think again about your customer. Are you in a committed partnership? Are you in a marriage of convenience? So that's where it's a chance encounter leading to a long-term bond. So where you are at somebody's house and you use a salad dressing, and you have it at a friend's party, and now you use it all the time after that because you had a chance encounter. You wouldn't normally have gone for it, in other words, but because you're at a friend's party, you used it, and now you're using it after that. Casual friendship then is one of few expectations and infrequent interactions. So, you know, breakfast eaters, you know, people rotate between different brands. So like I do it myself. I eat different brands of cereal, and you know, it all depends. You know, which ones, it depends on my mood sometimes. It's casual friendship. You know, I'm not really buying into the brand, you know, for no particular reason, you know, all the rest of it. So every one of us have that sort of a brand that we would use kind of on a casual friendship basis. So if you think of friendships, of marriages, you know, what does your product or service represent? So a close friendship then relates to a bond through a sense of shared reward, such as when a teenager believes his trainers to be a comrade in a sport activity. So in other words, you look at Nike, just do it. So a lot of people would buy Nike because they believe now they're Olympic kind of status. So they might be 30 stone, very heavy, but they buy Nike, and that suddenly transforms them into like an Olympic person. And of course, that's not the case, but the idea of it is that they think that there's the possibility there. So again, does your product or service represent that? A courtship then is a testing period before commitment, such as when a woman experiments with two perfumes before committing to one. So you're trying to figure out, do you like it, don't you? So again, does your product or service come into this? Dependency relates then to obsessive attraction, as maybe in the case of a man upset when his favorite beer is out of stock. So you can see again the dependency on that. You know, are you really into something and then you're very upset when you don't have it? A fling then is a short-term engagement, such as when a woman tries another perfume for the evening and then feels guilty about neglecting her traditional brand. And that can often be around, you know, perhaps you have a particular brand that you use and you want to use it, but maybe you try another one and then you're sorry you did because you feel it doesn't really represent you. Okay, so again, I sent some of these out to you, and I can send them out to you again if you would like, for being on the webinar. And you know, there's actually 15 of these, and I think they're really good because you can go back and you can look and you can kind of see, do your customers slot into some of these relationships, you know, or does your business as well? I did the Nescafe one already, so sorry about that. Okay. Just in terms of your business as well, an action item is you can conduct surveys with your customers, with future or present customers, or do both. SurveyMonkey has a free and paid version. It's great for doing surveys and helps to coordinate the data as well. You can also create one in Google Drive. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, well, who is my customer? What can I do? How can I go about it? Create a survey and ask them. And you can do it in SurveyMonkey, or you can do it in Google Drive, which is free. Focus groups, like I said, are gold if you can do it as well. They cost a little bit more money, and you know, that could do that. So if you're looking there, for example, about your customer, the Super Bowl date, if you can read it there. So if you can look at her haircut cost $35, her hair products are $150, her eye makeup was $60, wrinkle minimizer was $37, contact lenses $300, earrings $120, the tunic was $98, lingerie, leggings, boots, you know. So this is somebody going on a date. So what do they need even just to go on a date? So is this your customer? You know, so what do they need? Are you in the hair business? Are you in the eye makeup business? Are you in the, you know, the wrinkle business? You know, what business are you in? Her college education is $50,000. How to keep a man interested because she's single. Therapy, $4,000. Lip gloss, $19. Manicure is $9. Cologne is $65. Body lotion is $14. Workout equipment and diet and weight loss products are $15,000. So look at the Super Bowl date, you know, and look at your customers and write down like this: the haircut, the hair product, what do they wear, their leggings, the body lotion, how to keep a man interested if they're married, how to keep their man interested when you're married, your college education, you know, who are your customers, and write it out like that. And it's a very simple illustration of who your product or your customer could be. If you're looking at new products or service, you know, have an idea, test it with your customers. Social media shows the behavioral aspect of customers. So go into your customer insights, and it's a great way of figuring out about behaviors of your customers. Also map out your customer's journey, or just do something like that, you know. So map out your customer's journey and understand the world around you and them. And I put here transformation is huge. Just whatever industry you're in, just remember at the moment in the last year or so, if you're in an industry where you can ascribe to the notion of transformation, so be it coaching or whatever the case is, or you want to look beautiful on a particular night, transformation is huge. That's what people are looking for. It's very much of the now. Just action items as well. If you want to figure out about your customers as well, go to a trade group, go to a conference, go to embassies. This is where you can network and meet up with other people, join business networks online and offline, get cracking, get talking to people, have an excellent LinkedIn profile, fill out correctly for SEO, search engine optimization, check out your competitors, go on Facebook, be very strategic in your Facebook groups, follow relevant people on social media and Twitter examples. These are all action items about connecting, about networking, about marketing, about finding out about your customers, looking up your customer profiles, looking up the statistics that you have as well. Okay, priorities for your customers. You can take these down if you'd like. So priorities, what's important to your customer right now? What does success look like to them? The perceived barrier, what might hold them back from buying from you? So is it money? Is they're not sure? Is there other competitors in the markets? So what's important to your customer right now? What would success look like to them? What might hold them back from buying? How do customers gather information and make a purchase? How do you come to a decision? How do they rather come to a decision? So how do they get the information about you? In other words, do they find you on Google? Do they go and meet you? How do they find out about you? So, what's important to your customer right now? What would success look like to them? What might hold them back from buying? How do customers gather information and make a purchase? And how do they come to a decision? So the key is to find your target market, basically. And once you start working with your customers and clients, you can build your reputation in business every day. Keep hustling. And keep interviewing. So, for example, I interviewed 10 people about my target market, asking specific questions. I got wonderful insights. Create your value proposition. That's why us. And keep files in your customers. And this is just for your sake. It's not just holding information about them, but do you understand them? Who are they? Make time each day to go over how you serve them, just even in your head or once a week. Did you learn anything? Did they ask for anything unexpected? Could you upsell something? Is there a potential revenue stream? Keep learning, keep providing customer service, always ask questions of your clients, and a post-purchase questionnaire can be great as well. Get them to fill in surveys, give them a bonus for doing it. You'll probably have to, because people don't really like filling them in. Make sure to ask for referrals. Asking questions like, why did you buy from us or hire from us? What do you love most about what we do? What is something we do that others don't? It's important to understand, especially if you're in a niche market. Why are they going to you? Would you refer us? Can you tell me 3 other companies that you love? Okay, so these are just great questions to ask your customers. Also, if you're doing ads on Facebook or in general, do they communicate everything you want to say? Do your customers understand your message? Do your social media have consistent images? Are they promoted on your website? Again, your content marketing, is everything consistent? Okay. You can have a detailed customer profile. So literally who they are, going back to the date, the girl going on the date, and what brings them happiness and joy, going on the date, looking fabulous. Brainstorm on past and current clients. Are there similar personality points? If so, list them. Get it out of your head, get it onto paper. What are they concerned about? I'm kind of repeating a lot of this stuff. Where are they on their life cycle? Are they in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? Because each life cycle is different. What's their daily challenges and what's their income levels? So these are all, you've come across all these before. I know you're all in business, so you have, what do they hope to gain from you? What goals are they striving to attain? What experiences really excite them? So experiential holidays, what do they get for the information? Who do they trust the most? So if you can get a referral from their friends, from their colleagues, from influencers, that's who they trust the most. Just to think as well that depending on your product or service, there's thrill seekers out there. People are curious, social influence, escapism, buying books, for example, identity. What's their identity? Again, going back to, their image of themselves. Efficacy is mastered. So people want to master being a golfer. People want to master certain things. So can you help them to master something? And so think about your customer and how they imagine themselves after buying your product or service, and sell that image. That's really important. Again, I mentioned this, Facebook Insights is great to get information. Sorry, I'm going so fast, but I know we're on top of the hour there. So Google Analytics, past and present customer profiles, check out your competitors and check trends from your industry from valid sources. So these are all great ways to go back and get some information about this as well. So I won't go through all this because I've gone through actually it already in terms of what we've done. What I would like to point out to you is positioning. How is your product or service positioning in terms of price? Is it premium, low price, value? How are you distributing your product or service? Your promotion, how is that message getting across? Is it prestige, fun, powerful? What is your product or service? Is it premium, basic, or durable? So just to think about the messages and how you're positioning everything. So that kind of brings me to the end of everything, really. Sorry I was going so fast at the end. I'm conscious of your time. If you have any questions, please come back to me. Just want to highlight as well that just that I'm doing a beta consumer psychology course at just $49 for 21 days. I'm starting on the 7th of September. And really, I've had to go through a lot of this information this evening very quickly. So I'll be going through this obviously in a lot more depth on this particular course for 21 days. So if you'd like to join me, there'll be workbooks, videos, and live calls like today, and you'll get more in depth. And if you'd like help with this, I'd love if you could join me or share it with different people if you think they would like it as well. And that's just a testimonial from somebody that, I do have a lot of experience. I can help people with their, with practical elements of marketing and business as well. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, it's emma@emmadmarketing.ie. And I'm just going to check if you guys have any questions. And if you're still with me, it's been a long time, 2106. So yeah, thank you so much. Goodness me, you're still there. Thank you for listening. I'd really like to thank you all. And hang on, I have to come out of, so you can actually see me. Stop screen sharing. So you can actually see me. You should be able to see me now in a second. So yeah, so I'm back again, doing lots of talking and speaking very fast. So sorry, there's a lot to take in there. I'm just trying to give you the benefit of a lot of information. I hope you've got some help from it, some things to consider. A lot of this sometimes is just to start thinking about it, and afterwards then you're kind of diving in and actually doing something about it. We've gone over the time, so sorry now, I need to log off. And if you have any questions there now, if you'd like to ask before I log off, just please do. And Jeannie, thank you very much. On board for the 21-day course. Brilliant. Thank you, Mary. Loads to think about, Jess. That's what I'd like you all to, start thinking about it. It's very heavy stuff, but at the same time, it's really, really important stuff to think of. Not just stuff, but it's information that you need to know, and really every business owner needs to know it. It's often vastly overlooked, so I'd really encourage you all to have a look at the information. If you want to check out the course, it's in the chat there. I think you should have seen it. If not, I can email it to you guys. You'll be receiving an email from me in any case. I'll be doing this webinar again on Friday. If you know of anybody interested, maybe that they can log on as well. It'll be pretty much the same. So if you've already been here, you will be getting a replay as well. So I know I've been going fast. So if you'd like to go over any of it, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and in an email or whatever the case is. Yes, Jeannie, a lot to process and to know about, and a lot of this just consider it in the first instance and then to do something about it. So I am going to sign off. I have a babysitter waiting for me. So thank you all so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it, and delighted to have you here. And as I said, love to hear from you guys, and thank you for listening. So bye-bye. Have a great evening in Ireland, and I think you're kind of midday in Chicago. So have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.